Devilskein Dearlove by Alex Smith. It's an extract from chapter 3, and you need to know that the term company men, which sounds like a travelling salesman, is not. It's a demon. So here we go. When Erin Dearlove left the flat just after 6, armed with her tray of scones, Aunt Kate felt quite tempted to follow her up to the top floor, but thought better of it. Her psychiatrist friend had advised her to allow Erin to work through the fantasies in her own time. Kelwyn did follow, though. He trailed behind Erin in a wake of fresh, hot scone smell. "Can I have one?" he asked. Erin was doing her best to pretend he wasn't there. She did not reply. They smell awesome. Up and up they went, following the concrete stairs to the top floor of Van Riebeek Heights. Sorry. Although the sun had not yet set and the sky was still blue, racing between grey clouds, a nearly full moon was visible in glimpses. The traffic was thick, and workers were on their way home or stopping for beer or white wine with ice and cigarettes. Waiters in street cafes decanted recycled peanuts into dishes, lit candles, turned up music, replaced thin toilet rolls in washrooms with fat new ones, all in preparation for the parties of the night. "Oh, hello," said Kelwyn, who loved all animals. "Haven't I seen you before?" At the top step, a large, curly-haired poodle was waiting. Kelwyn reached out to pat the dog, but just as his hand made contact with Calvados's curls, the dog bared his teeth and backed off. A voice from the corridor said, "My dog never allows strangers to touch him." "Mr. Devilskein?" said Erin. Kelwyn stood and watched as Erin continued on to number 6616. But Devilskein, who had more than one pair of eyes, not in the back of his head, but in the bodies of all the insects along the passageway, was most deeply delighted to see into Kelwyn's soul, for it told him a secret he thought he would not so easily discover. "I've ate her scones," said Erin. "You're late," said Devilskein grumpily from within. "It's 6:10. The door was open, so Erin followed the poodle into the flat. Devilskein closed the front door behind him, and all sounds of the life in the street below vanished. "Sorry I'm late," said Erin, looking about her, wondering what lay beyond the 6 coloured doors. "To the kitchen, child," Devilskein shooed her out of the murky vestibule. "And just because you have scones, don't expect obsequious niceties. If they taste awful, I won't eat them out of kindness. Don't expect any of that." On a table covered by fine white linen cloth, there was a trio of tiny spoons and dainty silver dishes containing berry jam. It happened to have come fresh from the 16th century from the court of Versailles, unsalted butter and whipped cream. These last two were more locally sourced at a local 24-hour mini-mart. 2 throne-like chairs, 2 porcelain cups and saucers with matching side plates, and 2 silver knives also awaited the commencement of the tea party. The silence was so dense, the poodle's moist breathing was audible. He settled and closed his eyes. Since she had been late, Erin observed the rule of no conversation, and instead of talking, she occupied herself with slicing open a scone and slathering it with jam and cream. Her knife clinked with horrible loudness against the porcelain plate when she set it down. She was mid-bite when Devilskein cleared his throat and said, "You're a brave child." "Not really. Apparently I'm grumpy and spoiled." "Nothing wrong with being grumpy. Friendliness is overrated. I have, in my time, been possessed with the skill of telepathy, and it is no surprise to know that more than half the smiles people offer hide decidedly unfriendly thoughts. Civility is naught but a cunning mask. People are nice while they need you in their lives." Erin shrugged. "Well, you're not nice at all. So does that mean you don't need anyone in your life? Maybe, maybe not. You're full of secrets, aren't you? Like, what's behind all those doors in your entrance? Zoos, gardens, an infernal limbo, and time traps, mostly. And now that you know, I will probably have to kill you. Although he said that, and could have done it with the greatest of ease, Devilskein was not yet ready to kill Erin. And surprisingly too, he was enjoying her company. For although he was an esteemed company man, company for him was in fact a rarity, and perhaps it was needed. The poodle whimpered in his sleep before he began to snore softly. "Whatever," said Erin, oblivious to the immeasurable power of the company man sitting across the table. "Can I go inside one of them and see? I used to have a huge garden where I lived before, but now there's nothing but concrete, tar, shops and nightclubs. It's sordid." Her feet dangled. On that grand and imperious chair, her legs were not long enough to reach the floor. Devilskein frowned, startled and amused by her lack of trepidation. What harm could it do to let her see, he thought. Now that Devilskein had pinpointed the whereabouts of her soulmate in that boy in the corridor, the grumpy girl was not much longer for this earth. "Go in at your own risk, if you dare. But there's nothing to see at all, unless you happen..." With half a scone in her hand, Erin stood up and wandered back to the gloomy entrance, where the claustrophobia of shoebox towers continued. She chose to open the third door. It was yellow. As Devilskein had said, there was not much to see, but 6 more doors in an empty chamber. "Clearly, this is not a zoo nor a garden," she said. In the centre of a room, the marble tiles made a circular pattern. "So it must be a time trap. And where do those other doors go? And what is that sound?" Halfway to the centre of the room, she spied a cricket and stood still, listening to the insect making its stridulations. Usually, she would have avoided it, but something about this creature seemed lovely to her, so she kneeled down and put out her hand, inviting it to climb on her palm. Its spindly legs tickled her as it did so, and Erin giggled for the first time in far too long. She did not feel at home in Van Riebeek Heights, and she had few memories of the mansion with the glass staircase. But sitting there in Devilskein's strange middle-of-nowhere room, with the singing cricket in her hand, she felt uncommonly content. "You are a sheer delight," she said, imagining that the cricket must have been in all the rooms of Devilskein's lair, and so would know everything about them all. "Maybe you can show me the secrets of this place." She held the cricket up close to her face. "And we can be friends if you fancy." The cricket chirruped and flew up into the darkness of the ceiling. She walked out of the room and closed the yellow door behind her. Back in the kitchen, she found Mr. Devilskein dolloping Versailles jam onto a scone. "I went into the room with the yellow door," she said triumphantly. "It's not difficult to twist a doorknob. I walked into the centre of the room. Nothing special about that either." He smacked his lips, or rather the scar where his lips would have been. "You put too much baking powder in your scones." Despite his complaint, Mr. Devilskein had already eaten 2 and was on his 3rd. "It was a time trap, that room, wasn't it?" Briefly, Devilskein paused from chewing to observe the glimmer of her soul. It truly was most uncommon and valuable. He could see into her heart's secret, most subconscious desires. She wanted to undo time at any price. She hankered to be a hero, to come out of the cupboard where she had hidden and save the people she loved from their most gruesome fate. Swirling inside her, he saw talent tainted with fury of volcanic proportions. "Her heart will fit my chest most splendidly." "No way of knowing what a time trap really is," Devilskein said, nonchalantly doing some calculations in his head. "But I found a cricket, a singing cricket, and I'm sure he has a way of knowing. To Erin's great surprise, Mr. Devilskin's hideous face was suddenly transformed by a smile. His eyes twinkled. He looked completely different to his usual sour self. And then he whistled a tune. The next moment, with an arpeggio of chirrups, a cricket, surely the same cricket, came circling through the air of the kitchen and landed on the lid of the teapot. "That's him!" Erin was thrilled. "Wondered where you'd got to," Mr. Devilskin said to the cricket, "off chasing girls as usual." The cricket stopped his song and wiggled his feelers. He seemed to be listening to Mr. Devilskin as if he were a person, not an insect. "Do you know this cricket?" she asked. "Yes, we have been acquainted for quite some while. I saved him from an apocalypse once, and in return, his true love saved me. Now he's as precious as my dog, this cricket." Devilskin smiled again and addressed the cricket. "Not so, young fellow? We've shared a lot, haven't we?" Devilskin's tone was almost fond, which Erin thought most out of keeping with his fearsome reputation at Van Riebeck Heights, and definitely at odds with his often surly demeanour. "His name is Zhu. He was an envoy from the time when Genghis Khan ruled China. Isn't that so, Zhu?" The cricket replied with a single chirrup. That gave Erin a strange feeling in the pit of her belly. A memory squirmed inside her. A boy, her brother, Joe, reading Chinese fairy tales to her when she was little, before she could read for herself. Fiercely, she crushed the memory with another kind of reality check. It was one thing having tea with a disfigured old Grinch and playing make-believe, zoos, gardens and time traps. Surely that's all it was. But it was another thing completely when the monster began conversing with insects. "Does he always come when you whistle?" she asked suspiciously. "Used to, but he's been lost quite some while. Did you find him, or did he find you?" Devilskin cocked his head and appraised this skinny girl afresh. It could be significant, herald some great change. He rubbed his chest in the area of his heart, and Erin couldn't help gawping at his long, sharp fingernails. "But how can he understand English?" she asked, forcing herself to avert her appalled gaze. "Oh, that took several decades. When we first met, he knew only Chinese, but since then we have taught each other our languages. Now he knows Babylonian, Persian, Pashto, Arabic, Latin, Greek, and the Queen's English, and I know the Emperor's Chinese." As if to prove it, Devilskin said something in a language that Erin did not know. The cricket replied with a trio of chirrups, which seemed to delight Devilskin into a gale of laughter. It was all most peculiar, and Erin began to suspect that the monster was making a fool of her, because how on earth could he really be talking to a cricket? "So, you're saying he was once a Chinese man?" "That's the sum of it, but not the whole of it." Devilskin tipped tea into his saucer and placed it before the cricket. "Drink up, friend." The cricket clambered onto the saucer and sucked the tea therein. "It must be lonely to be a man living as a cricket," Erin said, leaning down towards the little creature. "You cannot make friends with other crickets, and you cannot make friends with men." It replied with a chirrup. "Aye," Devilskin nodded. He said it is. "I am probably lonely too," she said. "My family is dead, eaten by a crocodile." Thinking about it, her parents, the mansion with the glass stairs, and how mean most children seem to be, she felt an uncomfortable sense of violent irritation. She scowled. "Let us drink to loneliness then," Devilskin said. "It is not the worst of all afflictions, I assure you, and having family doesn't prevent it either. As with everything, loneliness is a state of mind." Devilskin topped up her cup. "So, lonely girl, you have not yet told me your name." Without taking her eyes off the cricket, she said, "Erin Dearlove." "Well, Dearlove. I think you and I, apart from age and appearance, are very similar. Both of us sour and friendless, and I bet you have an ugly temper just like me. We are both thoroughly unpleasant to be around. He grinned. The cricket made a comment in chirrups. Erin did not much like hearing that she was thoroughly unpleasant, but thinking about it, she realised that Mr. Devilskein could be right. Jus the cricket says he will be your friend. Really? Erin lost all her usual bristles. I would like that very much, Cricket. I mean, Mr. Jus. That memory of her dear brother who read Chinese fairy tales resurfaced, and as if to stamp it out once and for all, Erin thumped her fist on the kitchen table, causing the delicate porcelain to jump and clatter. Georgie! The cricket was knocked from his perch on the saucer and leapt across the tabletop and out of the kitchen. Erin ran after him, but couldn't catch him before he disappeared under one of the 6 doors, this time the brilliant turquoise door. She tried the handle, but it was locked. Devilskein and his poodle appeared in the shadowy vestibule. His face was back to being surly. What are you doing? He asked sharply. Just because she's going to be my heart donor doesn't mean she has any rights around here. The cricket has gone in here. I bet he's in a garden. She was rattling the handle to no avail. I want to see it. I miss having a garden. Let me go in, unlock it. Absolutely not. You are a meddlesome brat. What is beyond those doors is none of your business. Be off with you. He shooed at her like she was a pesky fly. Out! Out of my home this instant! He flung open the front door, yanked her by the ear and pushed her out, slamming the door behind her without so much as a goodbye.